The film opens with a long, wide shot of a desolate highway cutting through the vast, barren Mojave Desert. It's late at night, and the only sound is the soft hum of a distant breeze sweeping through the empty landscape. The camera pans slowly, capturing the solitude of the scene, before cutting to the interior of Kevin's truck. Kevin, a seasoned trucker in his mid-40s, sits behind the wheel, staring ahead with a focused expression. The dim, orange glow of the dashboard reflects off his face, and the faint sound of country music plays from the radio. Kevin's grizzled face shows the wear of years spent on the road, lines of exhaustion mixed with resolve. In a voiceover, Kevin begins narrating, setting the tone of the story. He introduces himself as a veteran trucker who's been on the road for over 20 years. He's seen all kinds of weird things out there, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened that night. It's 2017, and Kevin is on a tight schedule, hauling cargo through the Mojave Desert. The drive is long, and his headlights are barely cutting through the pitch-black night. Kevin talks about how much money he needs from this haul, why he's pushing through, even though he knows his headlights need to be fixed. When you're out here, it's just you and the road. No one's coming to save you if things go south, he mutters to himself, trying to push down a gnawing sense of unease. As Kevin continues his drive, the camera captures the surrounding emptiness, the road stretching endlessly into the night, flanked by scrubby desert plants barely visible in the truck's weak headlights. There are no other cars, no streetlights, no signs of civilization. The silence is deafening. Kevin's voiceover grows quieter as he remarks on how the desert at night can feel like you're the last person left on Earth. There's something unsettling about the isolation, but Kevin tries to shake it off. He's used to this. It's just another night on the road, he tells himself. The camera shows Kevin glancing at his fuel gauge, fidgeting slightly as he adjusts his grip on the wheel. He knows he's got a few more hours to go, but the growing darkness combined with the dullness of his headlights is starting to get to him. He turns up the radio, trying to drown out the creeping unease. The discovery. Kevin's attention is suddenly drawn to a flicker of light ahead. He squints, leaning forward in his seat as his truck approaches a stationary car in the middle of the road. The hazards are blinking, casting an orange glow across the pavement, and the passenger door is flung wide open. Kevin's grip tightens on the steering wheel. "What the hell?" he mutters. He slows his truck to a crawl and pulls over, stopping just a few feet behind the abandoned car. The camera lingers on the eerie stillness of the scene. The open door, the silent blinking hazards, and the endless desert around them. Kevin cuts the engine, and for a moment all we hear is the rhythmic clicking of the hazard lights and the low whistle of the desert wind. Kevin sits in his truck for a moment, staring at the car ahead of him, trying to make sense of what he's seeing. His breath fogs slightly in the cool night air, and the silence around him feels almost oppressive. It doesn't look good, he thinks to himself. His instincts, honed from years on the road, tell him that something's wrong. After a brief internal debate, Kevin decides to check it out. He grabs a flashlight from the glove compartment and steps out of the truck. The crunch of his boots on the gravelly roadside seems too loud in the stillness of the night as Kevin walks toward the abandoned car. He shines the flashlight through the open door. No one's inside. The seatbelt is still buckled, and there's a half-empty coffee cup in the cup holder. Kevin's unease deepens as he walks around to the back of the car, his flashlight beam bouncing off the dull metal of the trunk. That's when he notices something strange. There are several large black garbage bags stuffed in the trunk, tied up with rope. Kevin's heart starts to race as he steps closer, peering at the bags. He instinctively reaches out to touch one of them when suddenly a deafening gunshot rings out, shattering the stillness. Kevin jerks back, his flashlight tumbling to the ground. "Shit!" he exclaims, scrambling to his feet and looking around in a panic. The camera shows Kevin's wide-eyed expression, his breath coming in sharp gasps as he scans the darkness around him. From somewhere off in the distance, a man's voice calls out, "Hey, stop right there!" Out of the shadows, a figure emerges, walking toward Kevin with a slow, deliberate pace. The man has fiery red hair and a weathered face, holding a shovel in one hand and a rifle slung over his shoulder. His eyes lock on Kevin with an intensity that makes Kevin's blood run cold. "What are you doing?" the red-haired man shouts, his voice echoing across the empty desert. Kevin stumbles backward, his heart pounding in his chest. He doesn't wait to hear more. He turns and bolts back toward his truck, his boots slipping on the loose gravel as he runs. The camera stays tight on Kevin as he fumbles with his keys, trying to start the truck. His hands are shaking, sweat trickling down his forehead despite the cold night air. The headlights flicker to life just as the red-haired man starts running toward him, his silhouette framed against the night sky. Kevin slams the truck into gear, the tires kicking up dust as he floors it down the highway. For a few breathless moments, it seems like Kevin might have escaped. The camera follows his truck speeding down the highway, the open road stretching endlessly ahead. But then, in the rearview mirror, Kevin sees a pair of headlights, closer and closer, getting brighter as they chase him down. The red-haired man's car is gaining on him, and Kevin can hear the engine roaring behind him. His truck sways slightly as he grips the wheel, his heart hammering in his chest. Come on, he mutters to himself, glancing nervously in the mirror. The chase continues, with the red-haired man's car swerving dangerously close to Kevin's truck, its horn blaring in the night. Kevin knows he's in trouble. His truck is too heavy, too slow to outrun the other car. The red-haired man pulls up alongside him, shouting something that Kevin can't make out over the roar of their engines. Kevin swerves, trying to shake him off, but the man stays right with him. Just when it seems like the red-haired man is about to force Kevin off the road, flashing blue lights appear in the distance. A wave of relief washes over Kevin as he spots the police car parked up ahead. The red-haired man immediately slams on his brakes, veering off the highway and disappearing into the desert before the police can see him. Kevin pulls over, breathing heavily, as the police officer approaches his truck. The officer is calm, almost annoyingly so, as Kevin stammers out an explanation of what just happened. "That guy was chasing me. He had a gun. You've got to go after him," Kevin insists, his voice filled with panic. But the officer doesn't seem particularly concerned. He takes Kevin's statement, but doesn't make any move to pursue the red-haired man. Instead, he tells Kevin to relax, that they'll handle it. Kevin can't believe it. How can they just let that guy get away? But there's nothing more he can do. Exhausted and shaken, Kevin gets back into his truck, the weight of the night's events settling heavily on his shoulders. Kevin drives down the highway once again, but this time, the sense of solitude that he usually finds comforting feels suffocating. He's no longer alone with the peaceful quiet of the desert. He's haunted by the memory of the red-haired man, the bags in the trunk, and the gunshot that shattered the stillness of the night. His hands grip the steering wheel tightly, and he glances repeatedly in his rearview mirror, half expecting to see the headlights of the red-haired man's car coming after him again. In his voiceover, Kevin reflects on what happened. "I've been on the road for more than 2 decades, and I've seen a lot of things that make no sense. But nothing like that night. I still don't know what that man was doing out there, or what was in those bags. But I'll tell you this, I don't drive through the Mojave at night anymore. Not alone." Kevin's voice is filled with a quiet, weary resignation. The experience has left him shaken, and though he tries to tell himself that it's over, he knows the memory of that night will stay with him forever. As the sun begins to rise over the horizon, Kevin pulls into a rest stop, the soft pink and orange hues of dawn contrasting with the dark events of the night. He sits in his truck for a moment, staring out at the empty desert, his mind still racing. Then, with a deep breath, he shifts into gear and drives away, leaving the Mojave behind him. The camera lingers on the road as Kevin's truck fades into the distance, swallowed by the vast, empty landscape. The screen fades to black and the credits roll, accompanied by the eerie, haunting sounds of the desert at night. The wind, the faint rustling of sand, and the distant call of an unknown creature. This expanded version adds more depth and atmosphere to each part of the story, enhancing the tension and building the suspense throughout Kevin's terrifying experience in the desert.